Podcast Strategies, episode 73. The two things you have to get right with your audio quality. Hey everybody, welcome to the show this week. Okay, I need to share something with you. So very recently, we bought a third car. We just moved to Florida, of course, and we wanted to get a convertible. So we got a nice 2006 Mazda MX-5 convertible. It's great. I installed a new stereo system in it so that we could have Apple CarPlay. And listening to podcasts in that car made me realize that we still have not solved this issue with podcast audio quality. And so I wanted to hit on the two main things that you really need to make sure you have sorted when you produce a podcast or when you put a podcast out into the world. And these are two things that are not that hard to fix. First of all, let's talk about loudness. Now, way back in the analog days of producing music and things like that, we didn't have to worry too much about loudness because there weren't standards. Speakers and amplifiers were so different that it made it a problem to try and calibrate things. So we just didn't fool with it as much. And things in general were also less loud than they are now. But very recently, in the last decade or so, we've gotten some really reliable reference methods for calibrating loudness. And so some standards have been put in place. The main standard that you need to be concerned about when it comes to loudness is something called Luffs, L-U-F-S. This is a standard that was created primarily as a way to determine the differences between audio level of a TV program and then the commercials that were in between. Now, if you are my age, 42, or even older than the age of 20, you probably remember back before we had these systems that commercials were really heavily compressed. They were a lot louder than the TV program. And so many people complained over the years that they had to figure out something to solve this problem. So in the US and in Europe, we had this broadcast standard born known as Luffs. And there was a certain number of Luffs that you could be allowed to go to in terms of doing commercials and things like that. And over the last 5 or 6 years, this has spread to the entire audio industry, and we've all adopted that now. So in terms of loudness for your podcast, the number that you need to be trying to hit is minus 16 Luffs. Apple Podcasts uses this standard. That's the level that they want. Spotify uses this as well. I'm not sure about Google, whether they've published it or not, but minus 16 Luffs is the level that you want to shoot for in terms of loudness. You don't want to be louder than that. So louder would be minus 15, minus 14. You also don't want to try to be too much softer than that. Minus 18, minus 19. The reason being is that if you go too soft, you are going to have the problem that drives me crazy when I'm in my car, when I'm listening to podcasts on earbuds. And that's that I'll be listening along to a podcast that's at minus 16 Luffs, and then it will go to the next one in my playlist, and that one might be at minus 18, minus 19, very soft. And I'll have to turn up the volume to be able to hear it. But then when the next podcast comes up in my playlist, and maybe they have their loudness act together, all of a sudden my earbuds blast me in the eardrums and it's painful. So you have to get this right. If you aren't working with a producer that knows how to do this, and I know some people aren't because I've heard some very well produced podcasts that are way too soft or way too loud, then there is a solution for you. And the solution is something I've mentioned on previous episodes. And that's a tool like Auphonic, AUPHONIC.com. If you put your podcast, your final podcast, edited podcast episode file through Auphonic, you can actually set the loudness standard that you want it to come back as, and that solves your problem. This is not hard to do. If you ask your producer, hey, are you setting this at minus 16 Luffs? If you ask your editor, hey, are you setting the loudness at the right level, minus 16 Luffs for podcasts, and you get a blank stare or silence on the line, or they don't know what's going on, you need to find yourself another producer, because this is the main issue that I hear with most podcasts now. It's not noise. It's not reverb in the room. It's the loudness just being off, and it annoys the crap out of most listeners out there. So get this right. Now, the next concern that I have, and this is a concern that actually is for the health of your listeners as well, not just their sanity, and that's de-essing. The S frequency, so the frequency you hear when people say anything with the word, with the letter S in it, is really crucial, because if it is too loud, it actually will cause headaches in your listener. Think about how they're listening. Most of them are listening with earbuds, and you know it. You've experienced this too. When you've got a podcast host that has a lot of really piercing S's, that's painful to listen to if it's not dealt with. You have to deal with it. And this is how to deal with it. There are plugins called De-Essers, and they are specifically designed for dealing with the S frequency. It is essentially a compressor that focuses on the one frequency range, the S, and that's normally right around 7,000 hertz, or also known as 7 kilohertz, 8,000. It's in that range. And what you need to do when you're producing different people in the podcast is have a de-esser on each speaker so that you can control their S's. Some people have really, really terrible, problematic S's. They just speak that way, and you have to deal with it, because if you don't, you're actually hurting your listener, and I know you don't want to do that. So pardon the ranty nature of this today, but this is something that I just have gotten fed up with in the last week or two. If you are working with a producer, or maybe you're doing this yourself and you just don't know these things, either find someone to help you, go on YouTube and look at some videos of how to do this, or not. Use Ophonic, because Ophonic will actually handle the loudness for you. And I do believe that they also, when they're processing, do some de-essing on the whole file. It's better to do it further back in the chain, where you can do it to individual speakers and tailor it to their voice. But at least if you can't do anything else, go to Ophonic and use it. It's free. It's free. Even if you do a weekly show, you're probably not going to hit their threshold where it will actually cost you money. So that's it for today. I hope this episode helped you, and I look forward to speaking with you next week. I would love to get some more information from all of the listeners out there, people who love podcast strategies, people who are listening each week. I want to know what you need and what is bothering you right now, or what problems you're having, what hurdles you can't get over in your business or with your podcast. You know, you're trying to figure out just like what to figure out, which is hard enough. And since we don't know each other, even though we know each other through the podcast, but we don't really know each other, it's hard for me sometimes to know how or if I can help everyone that's listening. Is it crazy to assume that, like me, you're against wasting time and opportunity? So here's my idea. Let's schedule a 10-minute call where I jump right into asking you 2 simple questions. Number 1, what are 3 of your top headaches or frustrations in your business right now? You could just say, I hate trying to blank. And number 2 question, what are 2 to 3 goals for your business that you want to kill over the next 3 to 6 months? That's it. You don't have to worry about if they're in my skill set or represent the kind of work I do. I know other people that might be able to help you if I can't help. You're just going to vomit out the answers, and I'll know immediately if I can help. The rest is easy to figure out. I.e., do you want me to help? That's it. Are you against giving that a shot? If not, just go over to dannyosmond.com/call and schedule a quick 10-minute call with me at a time that works for you. And I really look forward to talking with you, hearing your opinions, hearing your answers, and seeing if there's a way that I can help you or get you the help that you need.